Rwanda has reportedly written to the Democratic Republic of Congo's government seeking the release of 2 citizens who have been detained in incommunicado for over 2 months by the Congolese National Intelligence Agency. For more on the conflict between Rwanda and the DRC, or tensions, we're now joined by Africa analyst Charles Sinkala. Thank you very much for availing yourself this afternoon. So in order to understand today, maybe let's go back to yesterday. Talk us through the genesis of the tensions between the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda.
Yes, and Linda, thank you very much for having me, and good afternoon to your listeners and viewers. Yes, for us to understand that, we must go back as early as 1994, post the genocide in Rwanda, where some of the allegations were made that so those guys who orchestrated the genocide came from the Democratic Republic of Congo, of which information they haven't proved yet. And, these tensions has proceeded for many years, which gave birth as well to the First Congo War in 1996 and 1997, and as well as the Second Congo War between 2008 and 2003, where Laurent Kabila, the father to the former president, was killed. But look, these tensions has escalated as far as condemning or accusing each other for aiding rebel organizations such as in Rwanda, those who would like to overthrow the government of Democratic Republic of Congo, and as well that Congo has been accused of aiding rebels that would like to overthrow Paul Kagame's government. And, the Pretoria agreement, which was mediated in Pretoria here in South Africa, has never yielded much of the results as the tensions continues. And you can see from the communication between the two countries of such an occasion that should have been communicated between the bilateral protocol, rather than publicizing that in the media, it's something to be desired to.
If we take a look at the nature of conflicts on the continent, you do wonder to what end or what is fueling them or who is fueling them. There was a recent agreement from parties in Ethiopia to cease tensions there, and you speak of tensions not ceasing between Rwanda and the DRC in spite of intervention from Pretoria. So how should we understand that in relation to what we are seeing in the eastern part of the DRC? Why is it continuing? Who needs to do what from the continent?
Due to the third law of conflict dictates that for every conflict there's a third party involved, whether in a relationship or in a country governance or in any sector of society. Without identifying that third party, the two parties can mediate talks to resolve conflicts, but as no sooner as the third party comes back into motion, they will fuel and continue fueling those conflicts. The conflicts between DRC and Rwanda has been fueled by multinational companies, including the United States of America, who is in DRC, and as well as United Nations, who claim that they are doing peace missions there. But they are supplying arms and ammunition to these rebel leaders to control the territories. And this also brings in the private and military security companies who are supported and very well funded to protect the interest of mineral-rich areas such as there in DRC. Many conflicts on the continent, they are coming from outside. And, efforts to mediate conflicts, especially in Tigray and Ethiopia areas, which was conducted here in South Africa under the leadership or chairmanship of Obasanjo. Those, yes, they can talk, but no sooner they left South Africa, the fight continued. But Africa needs to identify that these conflicts of them fighting among African nations, it's not healthy for Africa. As Africa, we consider ourselves as one continent, and as Africans, we must work together rather than intimidating each other, especially such a country such as Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo. And, we don't know who is intimidating who, because last time I checked, Rwanda has only 13 million people, and compared to Democratic Republic of Congo, which has got almost 98 million people. And the two countries have faced each other face to face in the early days, as when also the former defense minister, who is also a national of Rwanda, who was deployed in Congo for many years and became a citizen of DRC, was ousted, and that also emanated from the conflicts between the two countries.
What intelligence is there to help us understand, or better take a look at, the allegation that the United States and the United Nations are involved? And maybe the second part of the question is, then how do we understand that in relation to the United Nations Security Council, where no African country has a permanent seat anyway, but it discusses a majority of issues on the table are about conflict on the continent?
Yes, indeed, it's evident that these conflicts have been fueled by the outside. You know, Africa at one stage, they used to stay as one continent and one people, but no sooner than these people arrived here as visitors, they've divided. That's why you can see that such conflicts, United States of America, they are silent. European Union as well, they are silent. And as well as the United Nations Security Council, where, yes, we do not have a permanent seat, but they're also silent. They do not get involved to resolve these issues because they are involved. Mostly what they fear, especially those who fund these conflicts and wars on the African continent, their fear is once they stop the conflicts, they stop the bloodshed, they stop the suffering of the Africans on the continent, their GDP will drop drastically because they supply arms and ammunition to these war-torn conflict zones.
Dr. Sinkala, then how should we understand perhaps some of the utterances of the CEO of Rwanda, who from the outside looking in is very much pro-Africa and pro-development? Why then would they allow themselves to be used by these outside third forces that you talk about?
Well, it's a greediness of people and individuals, especially those in position of influence and administration of the both countries. What they should do is to sit in one room and look at this realistically in terms of the merits on why they are fighting. These are the questions that they have to ask for themselves. But for the divide and rule, for those who fuel conflicts on the continent, they actually bribe these politicians to create that confusion as a distraction. So it's a very lucrative type of industry where that those in position of influence, they continue fighting and blaming another country. Meanwhile, the problem and the fight is somewhere else. So it becomes difficult, especially when we have traitors now, the African leaders who are not
I promise I heard thunder outside, so that must have disturbed our connection. We get the point. Thank you very much to Africa analyst Charles Sinkala. Oh, you are back. You are back, Doc. Maybe just to close up the conversation, then in enters Uganda. How should we understand where they fit into this picture?
Uganda as well, you must remember that Paul Kagame, he was recruited in Uganda by Yoweri Museveni, as it was one of the rebel organizations that he was heading that also was incubated in Uganda to overthrow the legitimate elected government in Rwanda. At one time, Paul Kagame was a general in the Ugandan army, and their proximity has always supported the rebel movements to overthrow companies, of course, with the outside support. But we reach at the stage now in Africa that how can these three countries work together to build and liberate their own people? That is, I think, the issue that they have to discuss on the table, looking beyond the differences and looking beyond the historical conflicts that they might have had. Regarding the accusation that DRC or Uganda might have fueled their genocide in Rwanda, as well as Kabuga, who was found in France, who said he's the one who started the genocide. But it's a completely different story from the ground of what people actually say that. But our only hope that these three countries can look at each other in their eyes and save the people and stop the bloodshed and stop being used from outside. They must stop the help.
Dr. Sinkala, there's an African proverb, African solutions to African problems. How should we then understand that in the context of what you have highlighted?
I don't believe that. I don't share that African solution for African problems. The solutions for humanitarian is a universal solution which has been applied across the world, which has been applied in the United States of America, how they united the 50 states, out of different people coming from all over the world. The only country I know in my life that the United States of America, they consist of mostly all the religions and traditions and races in the world. And now, although they have problems there, but they are moving forward. So the solutions that they used there and the solutions which was used in USSR to unite those countries and the solutions that were used in the United Kingdom to attain the independence and the freedom that they have, it is a universal solution that can also be applied in Africa, taking into cognizance that we must not look outside for people to find the solution for us. We must find our own solution in Africa. That's what speaks to us working in a united front to make sure that we say no to what does not build us and we say yes to what can build our nations. And let's maybe do dialogues, not only when there's a conference outside Africa, the COP27 or United Nations has called a meeting, then all the leaders are rushing to go and attend there. Let's have more nations and heads of states and government to converge within countries, especially the war-torn countries such as DRC, Rwanda, as well as on the west side, where coup d'etats are as frequent as breakfast, even if breakfast is not as frequent for many of the people in those areas.
Africa analyst Charles Sinkala, thank you very much for availing yourself.